education space. Of course, you know, an entrepreneur herself, like every other person in this room, all entrepreneurs, all startups, you know, looking for expansion, looking for growth. I remember the conversations we've been having from the beginning of this conference. The theme is grow your business. And in reality, growth is a relative term. If I am on level 2, level 10 is growth. But there are people on level 20 already. Even them, level 30 is growth. And I believe strongly that in this world, breath is a proof that there is more to conquer. The fact that you draw breath, the fact that you are still alive is proof that you are not yet done. You have not yet arrived. You have not yet achieved all your potentials. Breath is proof that there is more to conquer. So irrespective of our growth level, irrespective of what level everybody is in this call, there's always more. There's always something more. All right. And that's what we have come to address from, you know, is what we've been addressing, you know, from Monday, and we continue that conversation. And today is very specific, is vertical growth. And I mean, it has to be divine, because even the European Export-Import Bank who will be coming to speak to us is also about, you know, global expansion. You know, they can give you the facilities you need, the money you need, particularly those who are into export and import, you know, all of the facilities you need, they can help you fund it, make all of that happen. And even as a startup, in no time, you can begin to record some very massive growth. And we're going to ask a lot of questions because, you know, they're going to be speaking to us immediately after Tahmina. All right, Ada, please, over to you. You know, you are the host. Take us on that journey. Over to you, Ada.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Peter. Thank you, everyone, for having me. Thank you. Okay, I'll be introducing our speaker. She was named a top immigration attorney for startups in America by Business Insider. Tahmina Watson is a nationally recognized expert in U.S. immigration law. Her specialization in the visa needs of global entrepreneurs have resulted in hundreds of startups and millions of dollars of business investments in the U.S. Hold on, let me edit someone. Okay. She founded Watson Immigration Law in Seattle in 2009, bringing to her practice a unique qualification for representing international entrepreneurs of Bangladesh heritage. Watson is a naturalized US citizen who immigrated from her native England, where she first practiced law as a barrister. Watson is among the immigration attorney that the New York Times has tapped for informed perspective on the state of immigration visas in the US. She is a sought-after industry expert, speaker, and media spokesman who has appeared in numerous major outlets, including Bloomberg, Forbes, NPR, and CNN. She is a member of the Forbes Business Council and a columnist of For Above the Law, which covers the legal professions of business readers. She has also 1 minute. She has also been a speaker at the annual conference of SXXW and Select USA, a Department of Commerce initiative for the US business investment. Watson has received honors from the Puget Sound Business Journal and the American Immigration Lawyers Association, for whom she has served as national spokesperson. She chaired the response committee of the association's Washington chapter. Watson served as the 2022-2023 president of the King Country WA Association. Watson, is also a former president of the King Country Washington Women Lawyers Association. Watson holds a dedicated podcast on U.S. immigration law for startups and founders seeking visas. This is her second book devoted to the topic. She's also the author of the best-selling Legal Heroes in the Era of Trump. Watson lives with her husband and her children in the suburb of Seattle, perhaps because she helps so many investors and startups see their vision for US businesses take a wing. She has become an avid bird photographer. So, ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, let's welcome our
Woo!
very today.
Welcome,
Like,
welcome,
unmute yourself
welcome,
and give her
welcome, welcome, welcome,
you're
welcome.
welcome.
You're
Welcome,
welcome,
ma.
man.
You're
Very
welcome,
Welcome,
ma.
man.
admiring.
Welcome,
Thank you
man.
That
so
is
much
so
for being
kind.
here.
Thank you
Welcome,
so
man.
much.
You're
You
welcome,
know,
ma.
So
it is,
welcome, man.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. No, it's about 4 a.m. in Seattle, Washington, but you guys have made this just so beautiful to wake up to. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate it. I want to just acknowledge Peter for a second. I met Peter in Maryland, as he mentioned, at Select USA. And I have to tell you that he is not just a charismatic human being. He really cares about every single one of you. You know, when I was speaking with him about the Africa Startup Factory, he has so much passion about making sure that the people that are within his community grow, and that the people within his community have startups that will be successful. That it's easy to just fall in love with the charismatic passion that he has. So I just wanted to make sure that you all know how lucky you are, and I'm lucky to be here. So thank you so much for having me. I consider myself an international human being at this point. I'm happy that you connect with me, that thinking that I'm from Nigeria. You know, I feel as though I need to do a DNA test anyway to see, where my background comes from. But my parents are from Bangladesh, which is a country next to India. But I was born and raised in London, and then I moved to the United States when I got married to my husband. But I'm very happy and honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I do have a presentation. Is it okay for me to share my screen? Can I do that
Sure.
for my PowerPoint? Okay. So let me get my PowerPoint up here so I can make sure that I can go through some of these things with you. Okay. Can you guys all see my screen?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Okay, so let me see how I get to the slideshow here. Slideshow from the beginning. Okie dokie. All right. So thank you so much for having me. My name is Tahmina Watson. I am in Seattle, as you heard, and this is all about startups. I want to start out by saying, please note that this is an educational event as opposed to legal advice. So make sure that you take this as informational and educational. I'm very grateful that there was this beautiful introduction of me, and just so you know that it's the book's names are the Startup Visa, and there are 3 books, and you can find them all on my website. I won't spend too much time here. I have so much to tell you that I'm going to skip through some of these things, but these are the 2 things you must know about. I have a podcast called The Startup Visa. This is all about US immigration, startup immigration issues. And so it is on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts, you will find the podcast there. It is the episodes, there are some, I haven't recorded any recent ones, but they're all going to be very important for you to listen to. So please subscribe to it. But I do have a second podcast called Tahmina Talks Immigration. Find the podcast and please subscribe. I think it's going to be important as I upload new episodes so that you can learn about some of the latest issues. Now, and what Peter mentioned, and you heard earlier, I have a book. This is my second book. It came out July 4th. In fact, when I was speaking with Peter, I didn't have the book in my hands. I was still working on it. I was even worried whether I could get it out on time. But the book is out. It is available on ebook as well as paperback and on hardback. These books are on Amazon Kindle and Barnes and Noble, or wherever you can get ebooks, you can find it. And I want to take you through just the content page, just a second, so you can understand why this book is going to be important for startups. And the presentation will follow that. The book goes through the various stages of startups. At your idea stage, at your pre-seed stage, what kind of visas can you use for the United States of America? Then it goes through some of the visas that basically, you have some money, you've raised some funds, you are now in the US. What kind of visa do you need for that to stay longer? And then once you've had your, you've had some time in the US, you've grown your business some, what do you do for the next stage? And so this PowerPoint presentation will go through some of these issues in briefly, and I'll talk about them, but you can read an expanded, more detailed version of it in the book. And this book was written exactly for you. Startups are where the world is changing. Each one of you are likely dealing with novel problems that the rest of the world actually needs to listen to. And you are finding solutions that other people are not necessarily thinking about. When you are on the ground with a problem, the solution that you can find is likely reasonable, practical, and efficient. But those who are sort of thinking of it on a theoretical level can never really find the solution. So it's important for you guys to really please get the book, because you will absolutely get 150% value out of it, not just for America, but it might be that some of the information here could be if you wanted to go to Europe or somewhere else. Talking about that, this is not something I plan to say, but I think it's important for you to know. Write this down, D-Globalist. D, just the letter D, and then globalist, and Google it and say D-Globalist India. This is an organization that is taking competitions, if you like. Check it out. Basically, it's about startups that are trying to do more, and you might find it useful. So essentially, I'm going to talk about these stages that I just mentioned, but I am going to assume most of you are going to be in the pre-seed, pre-revenue stage. Just click your button so I can see if that's right, just your reactions with the hands up, if that's correct, because I want to make sure that the time that we have together is absolutely invaluable for you, for the information you need to know. Now, what's happened here? Oh, okay. So I'm going to talk about something that is not on this PowerPoint, or it didn't save when I tried to do this at 3:30 a.m. For anybody who's coming to the US at your stage, if you are at a pre-revenue stage, and you're sort of figuring out, oh, how can I expand to the United States? One of the things that you should try as a first round is the B1, B2 tourist visa. Now, the B1 visa is for business purposes only, and the B2 visa is tourist purposes only. So when you are coming to the United States, you have to get a visa to go to and you have to go to the embassy, the consulate in Nigeria, and you have to tell them why you're coming to the US. Now, what are the reasons that are acceptable on a B1, B2 visa? You can come to the US to have meetings, and Peter is an expert on all of these things. He can guide you if you need to. You can come here to set up an office if that happens. You can also come here for very short training periods. And this can be a great visa because it doesn't cost you a lot of money. Like every single visa category that I will talk about will have visa fees in the United States as well as the embassy. The B1, B2 will simply need a fee for the embassy, and you will essentially take documents to prove why you're coming to the US. If you're coming to the conference, if you're coming to meet investors potentially, if you're coming here to meet co-founders, if you're coming here to set up an office, these are the things that a B1, B2 can do. Where can you look for more information? You can go to the USCIS.gov website, and write down, Google B1 visas USCIS, and it will give you the language you need that the embassy officers will need to hear from you. If you're coming here for Disney, if you're coming here to go to Hollywood, these are tourist reasons. But when you're coming here for business reasons, you need to be very clear about what those actions are. So that's one of the first things that you might want to consider when you're trying to come to the United States. Now, a lot of people in the US are often here as students, international students. When they are international students, they get time to work here after they graduate. They initially will get 12 months to work after graduation. And if you have a STEM degree, science, technology, engineering, math, then you get an additional 24 months. So in total, you can get 36 months to work here after you graduate, and that comes with being a student. So if you happen to come to the United States sometime in the near future, even if it's just a one-year master's course, if you go to community college and you're learning something in the US, when you are making inquiries for these schools, you want to make sure that the school tells you you are eligible for the optional practical training. A lot of international students, when they come here, this is their first thing that they will do. As a startup founder, there is everything I'm telling you here. There are chapters in the book. So anything that will catch your attention, you go straight to that chapter so you can learn more about it. So these are for people who are already here as students. But the one that I want you to know about is the International Entrepreneur Parole. Okay, that's number 3 here, and I'll talk about that in a second. The H-1B, a lot of people are aware of it. They hear about this word in the news, H-1B. These H-1B visa is for somebody who has a degree in the United States, or a degree from anywhere, but they're working in the United States, and you have to prove that your degree in your country is similar to a degree in the United States. And then I'm going to talk about the L1 visa. This is if you already have an established company in your country. It is established, you have employees, you have revenue that is generating. You can open a branch in the United States. L1 visa, okay? And then when you have funding, some of the visas you can consider are the International Entrepreneur Parole, the L1 that I just mentioned. The O visa is something that you can consider. The E2 visa does not apply to Nigerian citizens, unfortunately. So I'm not going to spend much time on that. And the H-1B visa. Now, some of the things that startups dream about are really the mergers and acquisitions, and the IPO being on the NASDAQ, in the United States, or similar things to that. What can you do? What do you need for your immigration journey when you get to that stage? That's when you want a green card. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this particular part today, but there is extensive information in the book. So before we start, I want you to think about when you are applying for a visa, what are the fundamental skills that you need? You need to be patient, because nothing, as you already know, as a startup founder, life is not easy. You are constantly on the go, and you are trying to hustle, and you're trying to make sure your product or your services are successful. You have to be patient when it comes to immigration, because everything you are doing in your work is going to generate paperwork, and that paperwork is everything about in immigration. So you have to think about the evidence, and you have to collect it. As a lawyer, I cannot generate your evidence. I have to use your evidence to tell your story. So this becomes teamwork. Everything that the lawyer and the client does is teamwork, where you know your business, I know the law. So patience and evidence is everything. And one of the things I tell everybody, there's a movie called Jerry Maguire. and it's a Tom Cruise movie. And in that, he says, show me the money, show me the money. Now, show me the money is an important thing to think about, because as a startup, revenue is everything, funding is everything, but that is also everything in immigration. The government wants to know that you can pay your salary in the United States, because they don't want somebody who is going to become a public charge, meaning that they're relying on government welfare. And you cannot get that if you're not a citizen, but they want to see that you have the funds to do that job. They also want to see that you have enough money in your business to be able to run the business. If you have a startup already, you likely know that your operation costs, your employee costs, your overhead, all of that is going to happen. So you definitely need to make sure that funding is front and center of your application. And that goes with a B1 visa too. If you're going to get a B1 visa, the government wants to know that you can pay for your stay in the United States, and then you have a job and you're going to go back. So show me the money is important. And the important headlines I want you to take away from this is employer, employment, and employee. Employer, employment, employee. So let's talk about the stage of pre-revenue, idea, pre-seed. And oh, it did save here. So the format is a little funky. So you can come to the United States, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I've talked about it, but you can come to the United States to consult with business associates. You can travel for scientific, educational, business conventions, and ask Peter about that. You can negotiate contracts. So let's say there's an investor, an accelerator in the United States, or angel investors you need to meet with. You can have all of these discussions with them on a B1. You do need to show that you do not have intent to live in the United States, and you do not intend to live here permanently. So they will want to see that you have a home, work, family, and funds back home, wherever your home is. In this case, it's likely Nigeria. I'm not going to spend too much time on the OPT section. It is covered in the book. I want you to read that or send it to any of your friends and family who are in the United States as students, because this is imperative if you are in the United States already. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that you can think about as training in the US. So how many people have heard of Y Combinator? Just put the reaction hands up. Y Combinator is a famous accelerator startup organization. There are many like that. There's Techstars. There are many. You do not have to limit yourself to just the two big ones. You can look at other accelerators. Google United States Startup Accelerators. There are many, many of them. And as the days go by, these accelerators are going to grow, because there is a deep understanding that startups are where businesses are changing. And with AI and technology changes that are happening in the world, accelerators are looking for people like you. So what kind of visas can you have when you're at an accelerator? You can have what's called a J1 visa. This is an exchange program where the accelerator will work with an exchange program, and the program will send the approval to the embassy, and you will get the J visa to come to the United States. The J visas can be for as little as 3 months, or it could be as much as 18 months. There are different types of work that people do on J visas. You might know that people come to the US as au pairs, where they're looking after children. They use the J visa too. So it's an interesting visa category, but for you, it's an important one to understand. So there's not too much about the J visa in the book itself, but you will find a lot of information on the USCIS website and find exchange programs. So the catchphrase for J is exchange programs. The H3 visa is also a training visa. Now, this is a formalized training. Let's say you have somebody who is in the United States who has a business in, software development, and you are trying to get your startup in Nigeria, but you want to learn more about how to do customer acquisition, and you want to learn more about how the business operates, operational issues. You could possibly have a training visa with them. You're not limited to an accelerator for that. I have done training visas for people who are learning about video and how to be a videographer. I've done it for people who are learning to be working in creating chef recipes. I did it for a Food Network chef, where she had a trainee who was learning about branding in the food industry. There are many different ways in which you can use the H3 visa. You just have to know that this visa exists. But for startups, your primary goal might be to come to the United States under a program, and that organization has to create the H3 program. This can be for 18 months. It could be for 2 years. If it's for 2 years, then you have to go to your home country and come back after 6 months. So typically, I file it for 12 months only, so that it can be extended if necessary. Now, the 12 months have to be broken down into classroom training, hands-on training, examination. So the training has to be very extensive. So let's say we took that example. Let's take the accelerator example. Everything that you're actually learning at the Africa Startup Factory, that's training. And, there is a curriculum to it. Essentially, the H3 is like a curriculum-related training. And this application gets filed in the US by the organization. And when it is approved, you go to the embassy to get the visa and come back into the US. So that's the H3. These are, I call the H3 and the J1 two sides of the same coin, same training coin. The process of getting that visa is a little different. The other thing to know about the J visa is that if you get it, there are circumstances in which the government will add a 2-year restriction, meaning that if you get the J visa, you must go home for 2 years before you can come back. Now, it gets attached in certain situations. And if you were to look at a J visa, ask the people who are helping you, is this going to get the 2-year restriction? Okay. Now, the ESTA doesn't apply to you. This is from people who are coming from countries that have a reciprocity with the United States. But what are the pros and cons of these visas? For the H3J1, you have to get some sort of payment, a stipend. It cannot be free work, because, again, the government doesn't want to have somebody who can't pay their rent. The H3J1, these can be filed anytime in the year, except, if an accelerator has their programs at set times of the year, that is driving the timing, as opposed to the government's timelines. Every visa has its own timeline, and these visas can be applied for any time in the year. There's no legal USCIS issue to it. So if you have questions, you can come back and ask me about those later. I want to make sure that I tell you these important ones before my time is up. The International Entrepreneur Parole. Now, this is for exactly you. It is for the startup founders who have brilliant ideas, who have funding in the United States, and they are trying to be here for their startups. They don't have an employer per se. The business becomes their employer, and they're coming here for rapid growth. Now, the book has a very detailed information, and I have put some links in this, but essentially the book will give you everything you need to know. I'm just going to go through some of the basic requirements. But if one of the reasons I love this visa, it's not a, by the way, it's not a visa. It is parole. It is permission to be in the United States. A lot of you might have heard that Ukrainian nationals who are fleeing the war, people from Afghanistan who have been fleeing people from Afghanistan who are trying to come to the US, they're coming here to stay. They're getting humanitarian permission to stay here. The word is parole. And parole basically means permission. And this particular parole program is using the same program as the humanitarian, but it is basing it on business necessity. You are coming here to create business benefits to the United States. Okay, so again, what do you have to think about? Catchphrase, show me the money. It's all about the money in this one for sure. There are buzzwords, they are rapid growth and significant public benefit. And all of that can be shown. Every visa that I talk about, by the way, today, must have a good business plan. Because the government doesn't know you as an individual. They need to know from your paperwork what your business is, where it is going, how it is getting there. And everything you're doing at the Africa Startup Factory, these are the things you're likely learning, but it needs to be in a formal business plan. We don't have a startup visa in the United States. I have been advocating for a startup visa since I started practicing law. And my first book, this is my first book, The Startup Visa. This is a second edition. This is where I say to the government, basically, and anybody who wants to learn why we need a startup visa. All the visas I talk about and we'll talk about here, they're not necessarily designed for a startup founder. But this international entrepreneur parole is designed for a startup founder. In the Obama era, by the way, whoop whoop for Obama, you know, he tried to get us a startup visa through Congress, and we couldn't get it. So when Congress failed on immigration reform, President Obama said, I am going to create a program, and this is how it exists. Okay, now it is taking a long time for the government to process these cases. It's taking 12 months and more, maybe about 18 months. Actually, they haven't told us how long they're going to take. But it just know that it takes a long time. And this is not a bad thing for people like you, because you don't have a ticking time clock. If you're in the US, that is going to come to an end. When people apply for a visa in the US and they are on a visa, they have limited time to be here. And they have to know when they can jump to the next stage on a visa. You don't have that problem. So if you meet all of these requirements, this is actually a very important one for you to consider. Okay, so I say here, best for international students who have some time left, but also for founders who are already outside the US, who have investors from the United States. So for you, if you are coming to the US on B1, B2 visas to look for investments, talk to investors, once you have that investment, this is the visa that would be very good for you. Now, what do you need to show? You need to show that your business is going to have a rapid growth for job creation and revenue generation, that your business was created within the last 5 years, or you received the funding within the last 5 years. You must have an entity in the United States, and I want you to know that Peter really wanted you to have a corporate lawyer in the US to talk about some of these incorporation issues. But I want you to know that that's not something that you have to worry about. If you have the immigration pathway ready, I will be able to help you find all the professionals that you need to get these applications filed. You know, I have been doing this for almost 20 years. I have come to work with some of the best people in the industry. So without the immigration strategy, none of these people can help you. Once you have the immigration strategy, then you have a 10-step list of action items to take. And the people that, I work with will be able to help you. The tax person, the incorporation person, the business plan person. These are the 3 people that are most important, and I will be able to help you get them. Your job is to really focus on growth, making sure your business is successful wherever you are, and that you're the successful business. If you have a good, solid, successful business, immigration will follow. We will find you the right visa category. But I come back to this one to make sure I digress just a little, that don't worry about the other professional services. I will help you find them. Now, the evidence to show the substantial growth is really the certificates of incorporation, the bylaws, the operating agreement, that's all the timelines, the business plan, the lease, and your website. You probably have a website already, or if you're working on it, by the time you come to the US or think about the United States, those have to be pretty solid. So they will look at who can get this visa, who can qualify as an entrepreneur, that you must have at least 10% of ownership in your business, and up to 3 people in your business can get this entrepreneur parole. So if there is a co-founder, 3 co-founders, for example, all 3 of you can get this. Now, how do you show that ownership? You will show it with the cap tables, the equity certificates, the bylaws, the operating agreements. Again, a startup corporate lawyer will help you formulate all of that paperwork. Now, how do you show that you have an important role in the business? The organization documents will show that you're a CTO, CEO, COO, all of those things will show those titles, but you might have already some success in your country. And I want to emphasize, be successful wherever you are, because it becomes the foundation of showing that you're going to be successful in the United States. So if you have success in your own country, anytime you're in the news, in the media, on the radio, save them, make your own portfolio and save them as a PDF. The government in the United States, they're not going to listen to a radio clip. They're not going to watch a video. We do want to send them the links, but you have to assume they won't listen to them or read them or watch them. We need to give them PDF copies of prints of everything. So as you get yourself exposure, if you're speaking at an event, if you are getting invited somewhere, now let's take Peter, for example, he must have gotten a letter from Select USA. Save that letter as evidence of your, credibility, because these are part of your credibility. Again, the book will have information about that, and you can read more on that. Now, there are 2 types of investors. You might remember I initially said employer, employment, employee. That should be your mantra when you walk out from here. Employer, employment, employee. Those are the 3 headings, no matter what kind of visa you're going to get. Now, in the United States, for these types of entrepreneur parole, the government is your business is going to be your employer, but the government is making their hook the investor, because as you know, it's very difficult to get investment. And if you are getting investment, the government wants to know that these investors know what they are doing. Are they investing in the right companies? Are they making right choices for? And so you can receive investment from venture capital organizations. Accelerators will often give you funds, and angel investors will give you funds. They all have different types of funding levels. You can have one-time funding, or you can combine a lot of your funding. Now, I do know that Africa is a continent in which American investors are opening funds. One of the things that you can do, and just a note for Peter, if you find investors in Africa with funds, you must talk to them about their funds in the US, but you want to use the hook of being on the ground to see if there are funds in Nigeria, because those people will become your connections in the United States for investments. So this is going to be important for you to know that these types of investors are the people that can qualify for the entrepreneur parole. So if your brother, your cousin, your uncle, your grandfather, they have money in the US, their money is not going to work unless they fall under the investor category. The other way in which the entrepreneur parole will work is if you are getting a grant or an award from a federal, state, or local government. And so let's say there are funds coming from, the state of Washington, and somehow you manage to, win a grant like that. That will also be the show me the money portion of this type of parole. So venture capital funding, accelerator funding, and angel funding, as well as grants and awards. Now, there are various restrictions on who can be the investor, as I mentioned, and I want you to read more about that in the book. I'm not going to take time because I have a lot to tell you, but just know that the government has various restrictions, and you must have received at least $264,147, so think of it as $265,000 in investments, one time or combined, and the people investing in you, they must have invested at least $600,000 in other startups, and those startups have created jobs, 5 jobs, and have at least $500,000, or $500,000 in revenue. The investment in your company must have been in the last 18 months, and the evidence of the money coming to your bank account, all of this evidence is going to be very important for you. So that's going to be the restriction. I'm not going to talk too much about the grants. Any evidence that you have, the letters, the checks, those are going to be the evidence for the entrepreneur funding. Now, what if you don't raise all of the funds that the government is looking for? They're looking for 265,000 and you've raised 200,000. Does that mean you'll fail? It means that you can still try. The government said that if you can show all the other things, that's why I mentioned that be successful wherever you are. If you can show continued success in your home country, that can be part of your evidence to say, look, I didn't quite get to $265,000, but look at all of these other things that I have done and all of these other things I will do. And they will look at the social impact, the scope of your business, the positive effects that you have created already. You want to show that your startup is worth it. You want to make sure that they know that you're worth a chance to be in the United States. Now, you can essentially renew the entrepreneur parole. It's initially for 2.5 years, and then you get another 2.5 years. So remember, this is not a visa, it's permission to be in the US, and it's going to be an important time for you to continue to build your visa, so you can either go straight to a green card or a suitable work visa. Now, the entrepreneur parole it requires that you have a salary when you are applying for this, and that's going to be important. Now, your spouse can work when you come to the US on this, and that income can count towards the minimum income they want to see from you. Again, this will be written in the book, so I want to make sure that you understand that. Why is this not moving? I'm so sorry. I don't know why it's not moving. There we go. Okay. So how do you apply? I'm not going to spend too much time, but essentially you apply in the United States. If it's approved, you have to get a document from the embassy. Again, the book will have information. The key is that you know about this. And if this is for you, then you go read the book in more detail. As I mentioned, co-founders can come to the United States. If it is denied, you can apply again, and your family can come with you on this type of parole. Okay, if you're funding, if you get a lot of funding, if you're lucky enough to get a lot of funding, your shares might dilute, but you don't want your shares to ever go below 5%. Otherwise, you are immediately kicked out of this program. Okay, so you can renew it. It needs more money. The government has to see that you have received more, like 528. The number is here, $528,000 $293. It goes up with inflation, basically. They want to see that you have continued growth with revenue as well as investment and job creation. Okay. And so the entrepreneur parole, if you're not in the United States, is really something to consider because it is our version of a startup visa. I'm going to move on to talk about something called Global Entrepreneur in Residence Program. This is in the book as well. This is when universities are partnering with startup founders because the universities are able to get H-1B visas that are not part of the lottery. You might remember I said to you earlier that there are timelines for these visas. You can only apply at certain times in the year. The H-1B is one of them. You can only apply in April. But the schools, higher education institutions can apply for H-1Bs anytime in the year. So this program, there's a chapter in the book about this. You can read more about that in the book, but essentially if the university partners with the startup founder, you can get an H-1B to be in the United States. Again, I'm running out of time. I know you have the European speaker that you must listen to, so I want to make sure that I just highlight the things you need to understand. So the chapter Global Entrepreneur in Residence is very important for you to know. Read that. The E2 visa is not applicable, but this L1 is something you must know about. Let's say you have your startup company, and thanks to Peter and all of the work that you guys are doing, your business is successful. You have an entity abroad. You have been working for the company for at least 1 year out of the last 3 years. You are going to come to the US. You have an entity here. You're coming to the US to do the same kind of job. And you have pay stubs to show that you have worked there. The government wants to see that this is for a multinational executive or manager. It's a multinational transfer. So you have heard of Microsoft. Microsoft has offices all over the world. How do they move people around from one country to another? This is the visa they use the most. They're transferring them. So you can transfer yourself from your country to the United States when you expand your business. So the L1 visa is an important one if you already have these things in motion. And there is a chapter in the book that will tell you more about that. So pay attention to that. If your business it needs to be successful though. If you do not have a business that is not generating funds, you do not have employees, the government will say, well, who's going to run the business abroad? And what is the proof of your need to expand? So evidence is everything. It's a good moment to tell you that every case, every person is a story. When we are trying to apply for a visa in the United States, we are trying to tell the government, this is the story of this company, this human being, this founder, this entrepreneur, and this is why they are expanding into the United States. They have the money, they have the office, they have the business. Please give them a chance. So think of yourself as the hero in your story, and we have to tell the story with the business paperwork, but that story has to make sense and the paperwork has to match that story. So series funding, I'm not going to talk about this now. Please read the book. I wanted to make sure that there's time for questions and answers. I'm sorry I haven't looked at the chat. I will stop sharing. So that I can look at that and you can ask me questions. But please know that the book is going to have a lot of information for series funding. When you get your funding, what do you do? And all of those things. So let me stop sharing. And I will open it up to questions because we have about 6 minutes left. I'm sorry I took so much time.
Well, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Let's give it up for Tahmina, everyone. Please, let's thank her. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you have your questions, you can just raise your hand to ask a question. Oh, I thought we were going to speak. Yeah, if you have your questions, please raise your hand. And I have a question.
No. So before we get to the question, Ada, We'll take the questions, right? Before we get into that question, can we at least just appreciate the fact that this kind of information, this kind of insight, naturally just makes you begin to think within the global space automatically. And we must also acknowledge that, I mean, these are things we probably will discuss, when we're done with Tahmina's session, because thankfully it is recorded. These are things you have to play the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time something enters you. You know that you are no longer playing small. This is those kind of content that just changes everything. If you have started a business just to survive, you hear things like this, you know that now this is big, exactly. Now I see that in the chat box, exactly, Precious, right? I set up a business, I just want to be fun, I just want to make some money, take care of myself and my family. But man, you can't come and listen to these kinds of insights and still think within that subsistence reality. You now begin to think of, going global. And really, I want to say a big, huge thank you to Madam Tahmina, for taking our time to be with us here today. So over to you, Ada. Let's take the questions. Yes, Ada, please, let's go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, my question is, are there people who has applied for this entrepreneurial parole? If there are, can you please just share maybe one of the examples, walk us through the process, please?
Yes, very good question. Now, this is a very new program. And it's gone through a lot of ups and downs, and I talk about that in the book, about what happened when President Obama created it, what President Trump did when he came into office, and how the program has survived. Because it is so new, there has only been one approval for this case, this type of case, that I am aware of. There have been maybe about 50 applications filed with the government, and at Select USA, where Peter and I met, there was a session from the officers who look at these types of cases, and they told us that they gave us a presentation on it and told us there were about 50 of these cases, and they're still pending. And so the answer to your question is, it is so new in America that it hasn't had a lot of traction to be able to give you data on what the government is trying to do with them. Now, just recently, the government wants to update the forms, but it doesn't tell us about adjudication. There are a small group of us that are advocating with the government, saying, you need to tell us if it's going to take 9 months or 12 months or 24 months. If we know how much time it will take, we will be able to plan our clients' lives for them. But they haven't. So it's a really good question, Adago, because it's so new that there's not a lot of data. But because it is new, and if people do not file, it's a chicken and egg. If the government doesn't get enough applications, they're not going to prioritize the resources for it. But when it comes to people like you, where you are trying to come to the US and none of the other visas are working, this is a good visa if you have received funding. And that is why I think it's something that people must keep at the top of their list. And once there are cases that are filed, that's when we can take some action. We can call our senators and our congresspeople. Maybe there are mechanisms to push cases. And so I don't want you to think about this as a problem. A lot of immigration lawyers in America think that, it's not a good program. I personally think that it is a good program because for you, every startup founder in this room, you are doing the things that this program is looking for. It is designed for that.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we'll take other questions. Precious, your hand is up. Precious, can you hear me? Or Mr. Peter? Okay.
I'm here very loud and very clear. I just want us to take, reactions, questions. So guys, let's ask. Hey, Bukola, Bukola is stressing me.
Okay, I'm here.
Ask the question now.
All right. Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right.
Precious.
So
But Precious's hand is up. and his mic is. So yes, please go.
No, Precious, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Ma, for this amazing session. And Mr. Peter, thank you, sir. So my question is, you spoke about coming to the US to meet with investors or to source for funding. And then you also listed a particular amount of funds that an entrepreneur must have to be able to have chances to be accepted into the program. So my question is, what if the entrepreneur is just a startup and then she has not been able to hit the targets of the money you've just mentioned? Is there any other way that entrepreneur may be able to access investors, I don't know, even in the US via the program?
It's a chicken and egg situation. Accessing the investor, you have to line those up before you come to you can't walk around the roads of the US knocking on the door saying, hey, are you an investor? You can't do that. You have to have everything lined up to be able to say, hey, embassy, US embassy folks, I have a meeting on December 10th. In Seattle with this particular, business meeting, please let me go. And so you have to have everything lined up. So you're sourcing. And one of the reasons I mentioned, look at US investors who have funds in your country, because that means you have direct access to them, and then you can talk to them about, can they invest in your business in the United States? You're going to open a business in the US. Can they invest in the US instead of Africa? I don't know how they operate. I'm not an investor in that way, but this is where you guys are going to have to do your research to see how do you get access to them. But the access happens before you can get the visa. Because whatever visa, show me the money has to be there already. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, are there more questions, guys?
So if anybody is not asking question, it's either you understand it so well, such that you need no more clarity, or I don't know. But I believe strongly that there's a lot of clarity today. If there's anything I have also heard, it is that now here in Nigeria, we of course understand the Japa syndrome. We understand sometimes the difficulties around getting visas and all that. But then as an entrepreneur, from all that Tahmina has shared, you know that your case is different. Your story is different. You can't labor, you can't move the same way every other person that just wants to Japa is moving. You've got to move a bit differently, which carries more honor, more weight, and has stronger credibility, in any country, not just, the United States. A lot, really, there's a lot. I actually also feel that one of the reasons people are not asking questions is that this is new information. Because all that we have known in this Nigeria is that B1, B2. And for the most part, it is Japa. For the most part. Oh, now I'm speaking my mind. They are responding in the chat box.
So I want to make sure that you see this book. It's called U.S. Immigration Visa Guide for Startups and Founders. And it's honestly written for people like you. It is written for you, for everyone. And the other thing that I mention to people, and I say this to my clients and I say it several times a day, be successful in what you're doing. Immigration is part of your journey. This book is written as a journey side by side to your startup. As your startup is progressing, immigration has to go side by side. But there's no substitute to the hard work that you have to do for your startup. You all know that. Your focus should be your business success. And as you expand and want to come to the United States, keep this book as your reference guide. I've told you which visas you should look at. You just go to that chapter, you read it, you understand it. because your understanding will make your lawyer's life a lot more easier too, because then you'll know that this is what I need to do. And it's not just about that. Green cards are based on many complicated factors. And one of the things I will ask you to do, I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. My website is www.watsonimmigrationlaw. We have a blog. Please sign up to that. Definitely sign up for our subscribe to our podcast, and just follow me, because I think what's really important is I have given you a lot of information and it can be overwhelming, and you are maybe not quite there yet, but when you get to that point of that visa or expansion, you know, just remember the key words and go back to it. But what I want to leave you with is that we're on this planet once, and you want to leave an impact. One of the words that Peter has mentioned several times is the divine nature of the universe. We're all here because you have a purpose in life and you're trying to fulfill it. Stay with your purpose, stay with your goals, and let immigration be part of that journey. If you come to the US and try to just do something for immigration, the business fails. I've seen it too many times. So the business has to be successful, and immigration will follow.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tahmina. This has been insightful. Actually, yes, truly, some of us are not yet there at that level. But I promise you, there are also people that I know, I don't want to mention anyone's names, who are also in this meeting right now, who are already at that point. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of follow-up conversations after now. And beyond these conversations here, the entire session is recorded. It will be shared on a wider platform across all platforms, so for sure. And this is the start, Tahmina. There's still going to be a lot of engagement, both physical and virtual. Please, at some point, you are coming down to Africa physically.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Cities.
I am a bird photographer in my spare time. I can't wait to see the birds that you have in your country. So I will be totally up for that. So one of the last things I would say is, if you get the book, please leave me a review on Amazon. As an author, I have to beg for reviews because the algorithms don't push your book up. So please support me on the book and give me reviews on that. So get the book on Amazon as a Kindle book. It's easy for you to get immediately. And please leave me a review.
For sure. At least, we are for sure buying. We are for sure buying. And then we'll give the review, But for sure, Tahmina, there's a lot to do. And because, our community is a community of startups, which is also the community you play in, both locally and internationally. So I kind of just feel that, it's strongly obvious that our interests are aligned, our path has crossed, and frankly, there's no telling to all that we will do. So really, again, thank you so much for taking out time. You're supposed to still be in bed and all that, you abandoned family somewhere. And you came into a studio to say, hey guys, let me come speak to these guys. Thank you so much. We are grateful. So guys, you know the drill. Unmute yourself, type it in the chat box, put your hands together, say something. Let's make Tahmina feel appreciated. Let's do it, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so
much. We are grateful.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Fantastic rest of your course, okay? Thank you for having me. Lovely to meet you, Peter. Thank you again. Bye.
Sure. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Has she left? Ada, she left?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So that we can discuss Tiwantiwa. People, why were you all of you quiet now? Wait, Apple. Wait. Hope European Union has not entered. I'm checking. What? Wait, everybody, what's going on? Why was everybody suddenly quiet? And I stop recording.
Shy.
And I stop recording.
Yeah, sure.
Why was everybody quiet? I'm going to call everyone. I'm going to start calling